Back then, Robert Mugabe had already ruled Zimbabwe for 34 years. Even at the age of 90, he showed no signs of stepping down. I'm Jamal Osman. Welcome to my journalism toolkit. But if there was one policy that defined his reign, one decision that still divides Zimbabweans and the world, it was his land reform program. The confiscation of white-owned farmland and the redistribution to black Zimbabweans. For years, this policy was painted abroad as disastrous, yet on the ground, the reality was more complicated. Zimbabwe's land has always been its lifeline, fertile, abundant, and fought over. When European colonizers arrived, they forced black families off their ancestral farms and claimed the soil as their own. Generations of black Zimbabweans became laborers on land that had once belonged to their forebears. That changed in 2000. Mugabe's land reform, violent, chaotic, and controversial, reversed the balance. To many, it was justice long delayed. The land finally was being returned.
The land must come. The land must come. The land must be in the hands of Zimbabweans.
14 years after reform began, I traveled to Zimbabwe to see the legacy for myself. That's when I met Percy. He had once worked for a white farmer back in 1977. For decades, owning land was an impossible dream. Banks denied him loans simply because he was black. But when the reform arrived, Percy applied and was allocated a farm. When he spoke to me, it was with a mix of pride and vindication.
At the moment, I'm blowing about 60.
60 foot.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when it's the busy time,
Maybe this time up to 120 years.
Double.
Yeah, double, yeah, that's right.
He told me the white farmers who once owned the land handed over the keys peacefully. Percy shared the farm with 2 other new black owners. And now, he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. He invested in tractors, reinvested profits into housing in Harare, and expanded his fields with determination.
I think it's more productive now, to be quite honest, than before, this piece of land.
Percy wanted to prove something, that black farmers could succeed where many had doubted them. Not far from Percy, I met a woman who had also received land. Before, she had lived in rented housing in Harare, struggling with her husband and 5 children to make ends meet.
There was nothing. The white man who was here collected everything. He left nothing at the ground.
Now, with her own farm, she had been transformed from tenant to landowner. Mugabe's land allocations for women were not just symbolic, they had altered the trajectory of lives. But not everyone prospered. I spoke with Charles, one of the few remaining white farmers. As president of the Commercial Farmers Union, he represented those who had lost everything. To him, land reform was a disastrous.
I mean, you just look at our GDP, for example, look at the unemployment, look at the exodus of people. I mean, it's no secret that there's 3 to 4 million people living in South Africa. Why? Why are they living there if this is a success story? Why are we importing food? 14 years. This is the 15th year we'll be importing food on a consecutive basis. Why? It's not working.
He argued, pointing the collapse of an economy once driven by agriculture. For Charles and his peers, the reform had stripped them not only of property, but of identity. Then there was Penny, another farmer who had turned land into opportunity. He invested beyond the farm, buying a compound with plans to convert it into a hotel. His son Franco had even returned from the UK after 7 years abroad.
For myself, it's more beneficial for me to be here rather than in the UK, because I can't say that I'm going to set up roots in the UK, because in the end I'll eventually come back. So I'd rather have something to come back to, a strong base here in Zimbabwe, which is where my home is.
Franco admitted coming home felt natural for him. He embraced Mugabe's Zimbabwe without hesitation. But while new black farmers expanded, built businesses, and employed workers, the political cost of Mugabe's land reform lingered. Zimbabwe's relationship with Britain was still broken, damaged not only by the seizures but by allegations of rigged elections, torture, and human rights abuses. The absence of white Zimbabweans was nowhere more visible than on the tobacco auction floors. Once dominated by British buyers, these spaces now hummed with Chinese traders.
I think these Chinese are better because basically what they do is they finance you to grow the crop, and you are obliged to sell the crop, all the proceeds of the crop to them. So that's the agreement. And the beauty of this contractor is they give you the loan interest free.
Walking away from those farms, I was struck by the contradiction. For some, land reform meant dignity, wealth, and a chance to finally stand on their own soil. For others, it meant loss, ruin, and exile. Mugabe's policy had broken Zimbabwe's back and at the same time given birth to a generation of black landowners who were determined to prove themselves. It was a story of justice, violence, pride, and pain woven into the soil of Zimbabwe itself. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.